There we go. Hi, folks. We're trying a new setting for this evening's good-natured hour. We're here in the native plant garden. To be perfectly honest, I thought I'd be a little bit farther out, sitting. There's a picnic table behind me, but I was sitting out there and I was freezing. So keep that in mind. We'll try that for a future gathering. I'm up here on the veranda behind the Potawatomi Community Center. I'm going to try and do a panoramic view for you with this camera so you get an idea of where we're at this evening. And put it on your list if you're local and you haven't been here, if you haven't been here in a while. I highly recommend you come over here. Potawatomi Community Center. The address is 8 North Avenue, but again, if you're local, it's not the North Avenue that is the same as Illinois Route 64. This is a short residential street that's a few blocks north of Route 64, which is called North Avenue as you go east of here and on into Chicago. I'm going to see if I can pick the camera up and not drop it, and just kind of give you a little look at the gorgeous surroundings that I'm sitting amidst tonight. And forgive the this kind of looks like a cattle gate, doesn't it? I forgot that the veranda back here is fenced in like this. But I'm gonna lift the camera up and let's take a view of what's around us. By the way, can everybody hear okay? I tried, I zipped my jacket up and I have the mic, normally I hold it up closer to my mouth, but the audio seems to be running okay. Can you guys hear okay?
Yep, hear you great.
Excellent.
Yes, right.
Everybody cross fingers and toes. I'm going to pick the camera up and I'm going to show you what it looks like behind me, all right? Actually, I'm going to turn the, so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. So, hold this up. And I pan starting over here. So that's the south end of the garden, and it's probably the sunniest end of the garden as well. As we get into the warmer weather months, there's going to be some compass plants, some prairie dock, some other sun-loving prairie sorts of plants. But then as you head north through the garden, you can see there's a lot of trees, and we have a more wooded type of feel. We've got some phlox blooming right now. That's the purple down there. We did have quite a few other wildflowers. We're in a little bit of a transition phase. That warm weather last week, it took us by surprise. I think it took the wildflowers by surprise too, because some of them, they didn't, they've been holding on so long in the nice cool wet weather, but then once the heat came, the flowers left. They set their seeds. You know, I'm going to try one more thing because there's a super cool tree right next to where we're sitting. I'm going to see if the camera will pick it up. All right, let me get the glare of the light away from us here. Can you see how the bark of this tree looks kind of like the sinew or the muscles? Actually, you know what? All right, hold on, let me see if I can get even closer here. So that looks kind of muscly. This is a tree, it's actually got two names. One is Blue Beech, but the other one is Musclewood. It does have bark on it. It actually looks like it's bare wood, but it's got a very smooth bark, and the texture as the tree grows has it resembling the contours of mussels. It's a tree that beavers love to munch on it. We had a grouping of 3 musclewoods over at Delmar Woods Park for several years. They were planted by our naturalist department founder, Mary O. And boy, in the space of a week, once the beavers found them, they took them all down. Anyway, I'm hoping we can gather here more often as the summer goes on. There's a little bit of light here too, so maybe that'll help with some of the weird lighting issues I've been having as we meet outside. Let's see if I can get this up just a little bit. No, that'll do. Well, no, you know what? I'm going to end up scrunching. There we go. How's that? Maybe someday Good Natured will get a camera crew, a tech crew. Wouldn't that be something? Tech support puppy. He never really lived up to my expectations. But anyway, folks, I've got a few pictures of some little nature experiences I had over the past week, and then I've got a couple of emails I wanted to share with you, and then I've got I'll just give you a sneak preview. We're going to meet a creature right here. But we'll save him for later. All right, let's get going with our screen share for the evening. Make that happen here. Where's the part I want to go to first? Oh boy, I've got all kinds of things open up. Here we go. All right, we're gonna actually back up here. We're gonna start. No. We're gonna start with this critter right here. So, I saw this on the carpet at Hickory Knolls, and I thought, oh dear, it's a dead bug. And then I picked it up, and its legs popped out and it started to move, and I looked at those formidable mandibles and I thought, oh, I'm gonna get pinched. Wonder of wonders, I did not, but it got me to thinking, what exactly are we looking at here? My brain registered ground beetle, and as it turns out, ground beetle is a very large family of coleopterans, and I thought we could do a little bit better, and luckily it didn't take too long to narrow it down. What we're looking at here is the underside of the insect. I'm going to see if I can zoom in here. Gets a little blurry, but you can see maybe right here it looks kind of like a chain series of dots. That's actually one of the antennae, and that is also one of the diagnostics for what turns out to be the genus Scarides. Now, we're going to flip over here to BugGuide, and we've talked about BugGuide before. I know there's a lot of apps out now where you can take a picture and get close to a diagnosis or a tentative identification just by having that app do an image search. I still am a fan of this slightly older way. For me, it was a big step to go from a paper field guide to something that's online. But what I really like about BugGuide is the way you're able to learn not just the bug, or as it turns out, the arthropod. They have a lot of spiders and centipedes and millipedes and stuff too. But you get to know the family too. And on here, you can see, if we start all the way over here on the left with Arthropoda, and then we go, that's the, if you hover on it, it'll even tell you where you're at taxonomically. So we've got phylum, hexapods, 6 legs, insects, that's our class Insecta, and then we go to the order. King Philip came over, kingdom, phylum, class, order, came over, and then they put in a few other classifications here to a suborder, and then here's the family. So 4 good spaghetti if we went all the way down to genus and species. That's the what is that, an acronym, a mnemonic device to help you learn the order, remember the order of the orders. The taxonomy for these things. But anyway, so ground beetle is what my mind registered, so that's where I started. If we go to that, you can see, if we go to the browse feature on BugGuide, there's lots of different subfamilies that we can go to. We're not going to browse through all of them, but if we get down to where we, nope, one, here, the Scaratini. And then here's a tribe, and then Scarites. And there are several options here. I suspect it's subterraneous because that seems to be a very common insect. If we go to the big-headed ground beetle information, we can look at where it commonly occurs, and you can see it's pretty much spread across the whole United States. And again, I'm hesitant to go all the way to species just because when you start reading what the beetle experts have to say, there's even disagreements amongst them. Looking at the shape of the antennal segments as noted below, there's disagreements about the body length. One notable thing that I wanted to show you though was that the, let's see if we go back to the genus Scarites and we go down to the bottom here. So again, lots and lots and lots of identifying information that goes sailing right over. Some of these things you need at least a hand lens and sometimes a microscope. There's some very private parts that you have to look at, and I'm not going to go there, not even for good nature. But I did want to show you down here at the bottom, one thing BugGuide is very good about is telling you about species that might be similar. And down here, we've got Platycerus, which if I click on that, we'll open that in a new tab. You can see by this picture, and then if we go to this page for this genus, you see it's got very different antennae. If we go back to our flopped over ground beetle here with this somewhat blurry antennae, in fact, let's go, I'm going to shrink this down, let's go to the next slide and zoom in again. The antennae is pushed off, they're pushed off here to the side, but you can see it's not that cool bullwinkle kind of antler-like antennae. These have little segments, so I'm going to stick with that Scarites. And again, subterraneous seems to be what we have around here. With that said, this is a predatory ground beetle. It was in the Nature Center. I was tempted to leave it there, but as heaven knows we have a lot of things in there that it could be eating on. But I did put it outside, and I was a little disappointed in reading these references. There was no mention made of the behavior of this insect. It, to me anyway, seems to play dead. You know, when it was on it, flipped on its back in the Nature Center, and I picked it up, I thought it was dead, and then it started squirming in my hand. So I brought it outside, and I thought, oh, you know, it's a predatory beetle. It's probably going to be kind of fast. How am I going to get a picture of it? And I set it down, and it didn't move. And I poked at it, and it didn't move, and it didn't turn around. It didn't try to pinch me. It didn't try to run away. It just laid there. And I thought, oh man, maybe, you know, is there something did I kill it? What happened? So I set it there, and I walked away, and I came back later, just a minute or two later, and it was gone. So it wasn't dead. I don't think anything ate it that quickly. But these are beetles that are active right now, so be looking for them. Big pinching predatory mandibles up here at the front, and then the bead-like antennae identify it as a ground beetle. Now this Platycerus, these beetles with the more bullwinkle-like antennae, they are actually related to stag beetles. They're in a different family completely, the scarab, stag, and best beetle family. So little parts like that, antennae. The other thing about Scarites, there's a lot of grooves on the wing coverings back here. Little things like that, those can play a big role in identifications too. All right, with that, let's go ahead and move along to our next topic. There we go. So, same day, I was out. I was actually looking at the front of the Nature Center. This is out at Hickory Knolls. And I was curious about what some carpenter bees were up to. Now, Hickory Knolls, there's a little bit of wood here and there, mostly on the interior, but the exterior of the building is covered in cement board, and there's aluminum cladding around all the window frames. There's not really any exposed wood, but there were two very determined carpenter bees that were seeming to defend an area there. So I was out there, I was trying to figure out what they were doing, and I saw the activity in the bushes here, which looks like the video's taking its time loading. But I heard some noises, actually kind of like the noise, I don't know if you can hear the noise behind me or if the mic is too close, but there's some robins. They're not doing their territory songs, the cheery up, cheerio, cheery up. They're not singing, they actually are making some rather excited pipping types of sounds. Probably, maybe they're trying to round the kids up for bed, I'm not sure. What I wanted to show you, now I'm having less and less hope that it's going to play, is a video of a robin fledgling. I wanted you to be able to see it and then also hear it, because they make some very distinctive little sounds, and they also have some very distinctive baby-like motions. Have you ever heard about the, I don't know if you call it a theory or if it's an actual fact, that the young of various organisms look cute and endearing so that the older organisms will take care of it? Certainly seems true of, pretty much anything I can think of. And this robin was, its tail feathers aren't completely grown out yet. It can fly, but probably only short distances because its wing feathers are still growing out too. But it was sitting in some shrubbery. I believe it was the dogwoods that are out in front of Hickory Knolls, and it was kind of quaking its feathers and begging and making these really the sort of sounds where you just wanted to rush over and stick a worm in its mouth, which is probably what the parents were preparing to do till I came along and caused everybody to get kind of upset. I'm gonna fast forward, and then I'm gonna move back and see if that, nope. Well, at the end, folks, if we have time, maybe I'll try again to see if I can get this to play. I kind of wonder if maybe our connection's a little bit slower out here, or maybe weaker. Since we're outside, I don't know, but anyway, look for fledgling robins right now. They have already raised their first brood to the point where they have left the nest. Some of them, the ones that got down to business early. All right, let's go on. So I was outside. I was listening to the baby robin. I was watching the carpenter bees, and I happened to look down, and I saw this young lady here. Let's zoom in. This is a bold jumping spider. I've got two pictures of her. This shows the iridescence on the chelicerae, which are the mouth parts up here at the front. You can kind of see her eyes too. Remember, I call these the teddy bears of. Okay, so this one maybe isn't as quite as cute as some of the other teddy bears we have in the jumping spider family, but bold jumping spider, Phidippus audax, is probably our most common jumper around here. It gets quite large. It's black and fuzzy. It usually has some sort of marking on the abdomen. In this case, it was orange. Oftentimes what we see is white, but this one had orange. And then those green mouth parts, the what you might call the fangs, are up here. And this spider was pivoting back and forth, watching me as I got closer than it was comfortable with me getting. Here's another image. We'll zoom in on this one too. Here you can see the marking just a little bit better. Now this spider, I didn't get the lip balm out because I thought I was already being intrusive enough taking the pictures that I was, but it was, I would say the body length was less than a centimeter. I would say maybe 8 millimeters, something like that. But they do get quite a bit larger than that, so this one is not fully grown yet. I suspect it's a female just because of the larger body size. In spider world, the females are usually larger than the males and also longer lived than the males. But I let it go on its way. I never did solve the mystery of the what the carpenter bees were up to. I just don't think there's any wood out there for them to be chewing into. But I'll keep looking, and if I see a hole appear somewhere, I'll report back to you on that. So while we talk about jumping spiders, I did have another jumping encounter. This, Kim, this was at your house last Saturday. This was a jumping spider I don't think I'd ever seen before. I took a video and I also took a still shot. So if the video isn't going to load, I really wanted you guys to be able to see the behavior. Most jumping spiders, regardless of identity, they have a very characteristic way that they move around. They have really good eyesight, which they use to sight and then ambush their prey. This isn't the kind of spider that will spin a web to catch its prey. They will let silk come out behind them. It's kind of a drag line or a way that they can follow to kind of like, you know, when when Hansel and Gretel put breadcrumbs down when they got lost in the woods, the way we put popcorn down to find our way back to the trail, back to the trailhead. Spiders will leave silk behind them so they can follow back to where their lair might be. Boy, this isn't going to load either, so let's just go on. I'll show you what the spider looks like when it's not moving, and also show you that it's a male. So look at this. I'm pretty sure this is a white-cheeked jumping spider. It's Pellegrina. A lot of the jumping spider genus, the most common one in this area is Phaidipus. So this Pellegrina I wasn't that familiar with, and it does have, it's not a hairy the way Audax is, and it's, look at the leaner characteristic of the abdomen, these legs, and then up here, we've talked about this many times in the past, so these two structures here up by the head, these are not legs, because if they were, the spider would have 10 legs and then it wouldn't be a spider, but they look like little boxing gloves, and that's how we tell our males from our females. If there's boxing gloves, it's a male, and no, they're not used for boxing. Those are the those are his reproductive organs right there up at the front, I know, and he actually uses those to reach underneath the female in order to deposit his sperm. So we know it's a male, and I'm pretty sure it's a white-cheeked. What I wasn't sure in working through this ID was whether all of the jumping spiders in this genus Pellegrina, if they are all white-cheeked jumping spiders or if there's one in particular. But here's a look at its distribution on BugGuide. And then if we browse through, oops, let me go back to genus here. There's a couple here that I thought might work. These look kind of similar. Flavipes. And this one here, the peppered jumper. This one doesn't. It didn't have the bold markings on the legs. Again, it is a male, so that might have something to do with that. But anyway, we're going to go with Pellegrina for now until somebody proves differently. But there are some pretty similar looking spiders in this genus, and I just didn't have the time to wrestle it out. One thing that is helpful in looking, if you're not really well acquainted with all the parts you need to know, which I certainly am not, you can look at the distribution of these different species by using that data function. So say if we're looking at, this one looks kind of similar, Pellegrina sebinema. We can look at the data. Oh, it occurs in the southwest. Now it could be, you know, all around the rest of the country too, and it just hasn't been reported to BugGuide. That's always, and they even say up here, they run a disclaimer on every one of these maps that says it's based on images submitted, and it might be incomplete, it might be over-inclusive, or it might be just plain wrong. But you can sort of get an idea, because BugGuide has been around for a very long time, and there's been a lot of different submissions. So anyway, we're going to say that's not this particular species, but it's a useful way to get to family and sometimes the genus, as we just did. Sorry, let's go back. I'm not going to try to wait. I'm not going to waste any more time on the video. It just doesn't seem like it's loading the way it should. All right, let's go. All right, I'm going to exit out of the screen share, and I'm going to go to our had some interesting correspondence over the last few weeks too, and again using this new format. I'm not building a formal PowerPoint slide deck in advance of the program. I'm going to try reading the email, and then I'm going to show you the pictures. Give me just a second here. That one. Okay, so this one says, Ms. Otto, I spotted this skeleton while walking my dogs at Peck Farm last night around 7 p.m. The skeleton was right next to the trail north of the path on the south side of the park, not too far from Fabian and Weymouth. I'm hoping it was a fox or a coyote and not a family pet. Anyway, I thought you might be interested. Of course. Thank you for your time, and I apologize for sending you a picture of a skeleton. I thought that was sweet. Let's open up this picture, and then I will share it to you like this. Okay, so here is Peck Farm skeleton. Now, the writer was concerned that it might be someone's pet, but let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and see what we've got. So one thing that jumped out right away is this thing has a really long neck. So there's some long-necked dog breeds, but I don't think there's any that have a shape quite like this. If we zoom in a little closer, you see it's got, here's the rib cage, here is our backbone. I think that's a stick that probably someone had used for poking. Here's part of the skull. It looks pretty chewed on. This was probably a pretty popular find there in the Peck Farm prairie. But let's go over here. Here's part of a jaw. There's some teeth over here, and that's going to give us our identity, our identification. You see these grooves in these molars and the size of these molars, and really a lack of any other sort of teeth other than these grooved molars. Those are herbivore molars, and a big animal like this, that's a deer. So it's not a pet, wasn't even a fox or a coyote. It was a deer that some sort of unfortunate circumstance befell it, and it ended up near the trail. I would imagine that there's even less of this carcass remaining now. Deer bones go quickly. Coyotes chew on them, and then rodents and rabbits too will use them as a source of calcium and also as a way of filing their teeth down. So one thing to look for if you should find a skeleton is see if you can find part of the head and what the teeth look like. All right, this, I'm gonna X out of this because this isn't terribly attractive. And now, actually kind of piggybacking on that, let me see if I can, oh no, you know what, I closed it. Right after we got that email, we got a voicemail, and it was a different person reporting a different skeleton to see if we wanted to use it for education. I actually declined that one just because we have a lot of bones that we've collected over the years. And the one thing that did make me want to go check it out was to see just if it was a raccoon or not. It seems like we have so many raccoons. I think we counted, we have something like 15 raccoon skulls in our collection. It's something so many people find, and because it's got canine teeth and you know, full dentition of a what looks like a carnivore. Everybody wants to think that it's a fox skull, and they are raccoons. Maybe we'll do a thing on raccoon versus fox skull ID another time. Anyway, I've got another email here I wanted to share with you. This one, this was actually one of several emails I received from a woman who has a Ring doorbell camera, and she'd actually called me a couple weeks ago saying that she'd been going through past clips from her Ring camera, and she said that she had a lot of Luna moths, and could I confirm that for her? And that kind of perked my ears up, because you know, Luna moths, they are part of the giant silk moth family. They're a big moth. We should be seeing them fairly soon. Usually end of May, beginning of June is when we see the first Luna moths. They're a pale yellow or a pale green, and their hind wings have like a tail on them that extends down. I'm not sure though that that's what we're seeing here. I'm going to open these pictures and then I will share this screen. Okay. All right, now let's go to our screen share and let's have a look. So here, right in the center here, to answer her question of is it a Luna moth, I can pretty confidently say no, it's not. But this did send me down a whole big rabbit hole of Ring camera images. There's forums where people are sharing the videos and the stills from their Ring cameras, because you're just capturing, usually the lighting is kind of weird, and there was one whole thread about fairies that fly at night, and I can kind of see how this might look fairy-like. I don't think it's a fairy. I would guess that two different insects came to mind, and I don't know if it's either one, but one was the snowy tree cricket, and another was the green lacewing. Actually, a third one might be some of our katydids that fly. These were all in the summertime. These were in August and September that these images were sent. So that's kind of where we went that, but it's not a Luna moth. And if she did have a whole lot of Luna moths, oops. All right, I lost the other image. Let me see if I can get it back. Here's the other one. So here, This one, I think, is a different type of insect from the first one. And this is the one I was thinking might be a lacewing. You can see the wings are, I think, translucent. It's hard to tell, but if the body is solid and reflecting white, and then there's not as much reflection here, I'm thinking these might be translucent wings. And the lacewing does have very well, lacy types of wings. They are often seen by outside lights at night as we get into the later summer months. So if you want to have some fun, look up insects on Ring camera and see what comes up. Lots of people, it's kind of funny, not so many people believing in insects and an awful lot of people believing in fairies out there. Maybe I'm wrong, but that would be kind of cool. All right, if somebody could actually prove that they were there. All right, let's do one more. This was a gentleman who was, he says, while bird watching at blackberry maples, I saw this strange plant with spines on the edges like an agave. What is it? See attached photo. All right, let me open this up, and we're going to take a look. And I was just talking with a woman this afternoon. I am not a plant person, but so it's always kind of a thrill when a plant comes along that I actually recognize, and this happens to be one of them. Here we go. I bet you guys recognize this too, especially if you like prairie plants. This is the start of a Rattlesnake Master. This is a plant that will get a pretty large stalk coming up in the middle, and then the flower is actually a globe-shaped structure, very distinctive. Supposedly, Rattlesnake Master, the leaves were chewed by indigenous people prior to rattlesnake holding ceremonies, and that was supposed to give them some sort of immunity to rattlesnake bites. Don't recommend it. And the plant may have been used a time or two to help get over the effects of a rattlesnake bite, but really the most usefulness that I've been able to learn about this plant actually comes from those strong leaves. They're very fibrous, and back in the day, native people here would, in fact, there's some evidence that this plant was cultivated by various tribes of Native Americans. They would take those leaves and weave them together to make shoes and sandals and bags, cordage, all sorts of things, because the fibers were so strong. This is also one of the few plants that I can remember the scientific name of, Eryngium yuccifolium. And yuccifolium refers to how the plant looks as though it is part of the yucca family, which it's not. If I remember correctly, yucca is in the asparagus family, and this is in the carrot family. It's a neat plant. It's just now starting to come up, and look for it in our prairies that are undergoing restoration. You can find it in several places around Kane County, including blackberry maples, where this gentleman was birding. Let's see, did I have one more? Butternuts, palm Easter, skeleton. Nope, I think that was it for the mailbag. Now, if you've been out recently in this area, walking around, you may have noticed that there's raised tunnels going across the pathways. We had a long period of cool weather with rain. We did have a few days of heat, but that rain kind of woke things up in the soil. Our wildflowers, woodland wildflowers were blooming. All the little arthropods that live in the soil and underground, they started moving around, and that then triggered the things that eat those little arthropods, including the mole. Yeah, let's see if I can hit this with some more lamps. Ouch. He just stuck me with his claw. Let me use my cell phone here to create a little bit more light. There we go. All right, Whoa, sorry about that. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let me try something else here. So this is an eastern mole. I've actually got two of them here. This one I've had, oh gosh, for over 15 years. It was my first and only attempt at preparing a study skin. This is when I was still working at Red Oak, and you can see the mouth there. That's cotton. That's actually gauze. His skin is stuffed with gauze. This was a mole that I found on the driveway down at Red Oak, and it was dead, and it looked like it had just crawled out on the driveway and died. But then when we slid it open, made a little hole down here and kind of turned it inside out, you could see the skull was crushed. Something had bit it and then spit it out. That seems to be the case with moles, which are insectivores, and also, forgot I had this guy in here, actually a couple of these. When I opened the case up, these are shrews, and shrews we've talked about before. They're insectivores as well. Let's see if I can hold it up against my hand. Oop. You see that? Pointy nose, and not very big. This is probably a masked shrew. There are most, that and the short-tailed shrew are our most common little creatures. But they run around, these guys run around above ground, and these guys, the moles, run around below ground. I heard the figure the other day. Josh over at Creek Bend said that they can swim through the dirt at a rate of something like 5 miles an hour, which is way faster than I walk, I can tell you that. And then I also wanted to show you the front. They've got very short little limbs, but then they've got these enormous front feet that look like shovels, don't they? Shovels, or Linnaeus, actually, when he was sent specimens of this to identify, he looked at them and he thought that they looked like webbed feet, like paddles. And thus we have a mole with the genus, species name of Aquaticus, because it looks like it swims. It certainly swims through the dirt. This one was a donation. Lots more stuffing in this mole than in this mole. I think in real life, a live specimen would be somewhere in between these two. One other thing I wanted to show you before we go to the chats is this mole fur. Now, remember, this is a creature that lives underground. Its eyes are almost non-existent. It's just swimming through the dirt, and it's eating anything it comes upon. Roly-polies, earthworms, slugs, whatever it can be. And as the weather warms up, as it has, they come closer to the soil surface, and that's where you see these raised trails appearing often across the trails that we walk on. You can stick your finger down there. They're not creating burrows that they live in. They're just creating holes that they're feeding in as they move along, as they swim through the dirt. But sometimes they'll come to a tree root, or they'll come to a big rock or something, some sort of obstruction, and they have to be able to maneuver around in that tunnel. This is fur that's impossible to mess up. Most, a cat or a dog, a fox or a coyote, there's the fur orients in a certain way. You've probably been told, I remember being told as a kid, don't pet the dog the wrong way. But with moles, it doesn't really matter. This is, it's very short, very, very soft fur, and you cannot mess it up. Kind of cool. All right. I don't know if this is one of you guys. Nope. what that is. If one of you just texted me, let me know, and we'll try and pull that up to look at. But with that, let me take a look here. We got a couple of chats here for the group. Laura, right, yeah, it does kind of look like a stag beetle. Going back to that ground beetle. The stags will be coming out pretty soon. I always associate them with 4th of July. They wait for it to be a little warmer before they come out. And they, the stag beetles, I'm not sure exactly what they feed on. I know people who keep stag beetles, they feed the adults rotten fruit. I'm not sure that the adult stags live for a very long time. They're the ones that develop from those big white grubs that you'll find in decaying wood. And the grub can live, I think it's a multi-year cycle that it lives in its larval stage, and then it makes a little pupal chamber, and then it transforms, and they come crawling out as we get into the dog, well, not quite the dog days, but as we get into July. I think last year, was it, I ranted to the good-natured crowd about the best place to find stag beetles in St. Charles was always the playground at Lincoln Park across from St. Pat's Church, Old St. Pat's. And it was time for the park district to update that playground, so they scraped away the years and years of decaying wood mulch that were on that playground, where all these stag beetles were developing year after year. And I'd go there at night with a flashlight, and I'd watch them come out, and I'd watch the males battle with their big mandibles pushing each other back and forth. Anyway, that's all gone, so I'm actually on the search for another old playground. Actually, there's 5 that are being updated this year, so it's going to be a race against time. I'm going to see if I can find some more stag beetles as that season comes around. And then Diane, you wanted to add that you can upload a photo on BugGuide, and fellow bug nerds will respond with ID info. Responses may not be immediate. Yes, in fact, I did that a couple weeks ago. If you want, let's go to that real quick, because you do need to create an account in order to get an ID. But let's see, let's go. We're back at BugGuide again, and over here there's a login, so you can register, and then once you're registered, you log in. With any luck at all, yes, this will fill in, because I can never remember my passwords. So you can go to ID request up here, and you can just upload what it is that you need identified. I had actually uploaded something that we found on our Johnson's Mound King County Certified Naturalist field trip a couple weeks ago. It was a beetle larva that I didn't hear back from these guys yet, because like Diane said, and remember, this is an all-volunteer group that runs BugGuide. There's some pretty well-established entomologists and arachnologists behind this. Locally, we have the Balabans. They've been contributing to BugGuide for years and years. There's another guy named Eric Eaton who has the wonderful blog Bug Eric. He contributes. There's lots and lots of people, but it is something they do. It's not a full-time gig for them. They do it when they have time. But I had found, I think we talked about it last week, that beetle larva with the scooped in end of the abdomen. And I didn't get the ID here, but I did fish around enough on the internet that I figured it out myself. Mericantha, I believe, is the identification for that beetle. But yeah, so use BugGuide as a resource by using that cool ID request.
Pam, this is Diane.
Oh, hey, Diane.
I posted a beetle that I found probably I posted it about a year ago, and you know, I'm still getting messages about that beetle.
Oh,
Every once in a while I'll get another message about, you know, yes, that is a pig beetle, you know. And so if you're in a hurry to find out what it is, then that's not the way to go. But if you're just curious about a particular insect that you find, it's kind of fun.
It's so cool. Well, and you do, you know, I've learned a lot through this identification process, because yeah, sometimes there's, you know, people, and they'll sometimes then they'll share what it is that they're using to make that ID, and it really opens your eyes, because there's just so many things to look at. It's not just a size or a color. There's lots and lots of variables, and it also varies with the group that you're looking at. If it's a bee or a wasp or a beetle, and it's just a never-ending learning journey, which is part of the fun. I had a thought. One of my thoughts is I think it's starting to rain. Chris, you had a chat here that says Stag Beetle consumes decaying wood during its larval stage for the year or two of adulthood. Beetle eats very little food besides perhaps rotting fruit. Excellent. Yeah, I know when I've tried to rear them, the recommendation has been to put rotting bananas or peaches or something like that, and they feed on the sweetness from those foods. Let's see. And yes, Jerry, iNaturals can be good too. I haven't quite gotten into that one yet, because to me, it's a little too immediate. Sometimes if you're looking for an answer really quickly, that might be the best way to go. I still kind of like this. Some people one person actually did call it the old way of doing things, even though it's online. But just learning about the organism and the family that it belongs to can help in the long run, help you make those quicker IDs. But that did remind me, so there is, on BugGuide, there is another area here, the forums. And there's a forum about rearing insects. And I've gone to that here, rearing wild insects. This is really helpful if, now I don't always advocate taking things from the wild to bring in, but with insects, there's so much learning that can be done. And there's a lot of great information here if you're looking to, say, learn about beetles. I've reared a couple of different grubs that have been found. In fact, one of them, a group of them were found out here in a load of mulch that came here to the native plant garden, and didn't know what they were. They were a white grub. They were not quite as big as my thumb. And there are some grub keys, but again, some of the parts are really hard to see. So the next best thing is to rear it to adulthood, and it turned out they were grapevine beetles. So, but there's a lot of helpful tips from people who have been rearing insects for a long time, and also people who are just starting out who have questions. So you can go to the forums here on BugGuide as well for more great information. With that, I'm going to stop the share and go back to you, see if we got, looks like we're through the bottom of the chats. And yeah, it's not pouring, but it is sprinkling, and you know, I'm already kind of in a little bit of trouble for all the bits of, you know, walking stick substrate and insect parts and other little bits that have made their way into my keyboard. So maybe what we should do is sign off for tonight before I'm getting water in there as well. Anyway, folks, appreciate your time this evening. I think this was an okay setting for this good-natured hour. Do you guys think it worked out okay? Could you hear me all right and see things?
Yes.
There's a built-in light right here too. So I'll remember that as well, because there's no light back there where the picnic table is. But I think we'll come back here again sometime, maybe even next week. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Everybody, Have a great rest of your week. Hope you find some good nature of your own, and see you back next Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Pam.
you. Good night, Pam.
Thanks a lot, Pam.
Have a good night.